But first, President Trump continues to repeat the unsubstantiated claim that millions of illegal votes were cast in the 2016 election. The commission he set up to look into this has sparked its own controversy. William Brangham reports.
Every time voter fraud occurs, it cancels out the vote of a lawful citizen and undermines democracy.
The first meeting of the Commission on Election Integrity convened with a presidential defense of its mission.
Throughout the campaign and even after it, people would come up to me and express their concerns about voter inconsistencies and irregularities which they saw, in some cases having to do with very large numbers of people in certain states.
So far, those allegations remain unproven, but the commission is pressing ahead. Last month, it sent letters to every state asking for voter information, including names, birthdays, and partial Social Security numbers. 17 states, governed by Republicans and Democrats, as well as the District of Columbia, refused to comply. Many others said they'll provide only limited information that's already publicly available. Today, the president criticized those states who have refused to go along.
One has to wonder what they're worried about. And I asked the vice president, I asked the commission, what are they worried about? There's something. There always is.
Just after the election, where Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 2.8 million votes, Mr. Trump tweeted, again with no evidence whatsoever, that the vote count was skewed. Quote, "I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally." The commission co-chair, Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, who's a Republican, says the country deserves a hard, dispassionate look at the issue.
For a long time, there's been lingering doubt among many Americans about the integrity and fairness of elections, and it's not a new issue at all. If you look at the polling data, it goes back decades.
The panel is chaired by Vice President Pence, and in addition to Kobach, members include current and former secretaries of state from Indiana, New Hampshire, Maine, and Ohio, among others. But critics of the commission warn that stoking fears of alleged fraud will be used later to justify a crackdown on voting rights. Rick Hasson is a law professor at the University of California, Irvine, and an election law expert.
I'm concerned that it's going to be something that is just going to try to support the president's agenda, that claiming that there's a lot of voter fraud, and use that to make it harder for people to be able to register to vote.
Already, the commission is facing at least 7 lawsuits questioning its transparency, conduct, and even its existence. We turn now to 2 officials who actually run elections in their states. Matthew Dunlap is the Secretary of State for Maine. He's a Democrat, and he's also a member of the President's Commission, and he was at today's meeting. We're also joined by Michelle Reagan. She's a Republican, and she is Arizona's Secretary of State. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Matthew, I'd love to start with you first. What is your general hope that this commission, what do you hope it will accomplish?
Well, my general hope is that we actually do something to bolster voter confidence in how we conduct elections in this country. I think we have an awful lot to be proud of. No one's questioning the legitimacy of the outcome of the 2016 election. There are some lingering questions about how elections have been conducted, who was able to vote legally or not. And I think, based on my experience in the state of Maine, I think we can be very, very proud of what our local election officials have done to make sure that their neighbors get to exercise their democratic right of self-governance.
Michelle Reagan, I know you are a supporter broadly of this commission and its aims. As you know, the commission was set up in part because of the president's concern that there had been some voter fraud in the past election. I'm curious, you were running the election in Arizona back in 2016. Did you have any instances of fraud in your state?
Well, I can't speak, obviously, for other states, but I know in Arizona we have a number of measures that we use to prevent fraud. And that's not to say fraud never happens. Certainly, when we hear allegations of that, we take it very seriously. But it's important to note Arizona has some laws on the books that keep it very safe from fraud, massive fraud. One is the showing proof of ID at the polling places. Another is proof of citizenship when registering to vote. A lot of states don't have these laws. And so, speaking from Arizona's point of view, coupled with the fact that we also participate already in interstate cross-check systems for instances of double voting or double registration, we're pretty confident in Arizona that we run a really good election.
Matthew Dunlap, as I mentioned in the report prior to this, the commission asked all the states for some types of voter information, and there was a lot of concern. Many states pushed back. I understand Maine did not share its information. Can you explain to me, what is the concern? What are you worried about?
But we're not really worried about anything. We just followed the law. The request that came from the commission, which as commission members, we did not review the full text of the letter that went out. We did agree that the information that should be requested, not demanded, and it should only be that information that would be publicly available to anyone legally entitled to obtain it under those particular state laws. When we got the request, the letter said that be advised that any information that you provide will be made publicly available for anyone to inspect. Maine election law specifies that anyone who is qualified to access the voter file must keep it confidential. And that is directory language. Making the list available is discretionary under the law. So with that direction, it was a mathematical equation for us. We simply could not provide it under those circumstances, and so we did not.
Michelle Reagan, do you have concerns about this database being compiled here in Washington, D.C.?
Well, absolutely, we have concerns. And again, in Arizona, we just looked to the statutes and the law to tell us exactly what we were going to have to do or not do. And the law is pretty clear that, again, just like in Maine, you can't take the information via a public records request with the intent of sharing it or posting it publicly or disseminate, giving it out.
Matthew Dunlap, what about this larger concern that has been raised by some people that this commission and its mission is going to be used to justify further national crackdown on voting rights? What do you make of that?
That's one of my favorite questions to get out of all this, is that somehow we are trying to undo the electoral process. My position is that you have these lingering questions that have been around for a while now about illegal activity around elections. Sunshine is the greatest disinfectant. I have full confidence that everything that's been claimed will probably be largely debunked. And what we will find will probably be the product of mistakes and errors and unintended actions that were never meant to become felonies. So I think, with that understanding, I think what we're going to find is that we have a really pretty good system that's very, very decentralized, which actually adds to its level of security against some of the allegations that we've heard about, like the Russian Federation getting involved in hacking our elections. I think the systems that we have in place, which are run by local elections officials, actually will be found to work very, very well, and that American voters should feel pretty good about the systems that help us select our leadership and decide issues.
Michelle Reagan, you heard Matthew here say that he believes the commission will largely debunk many of these claims. But just today, the co-chairman of the commission, Chris Kobach, said on MSNBC that he says we may never know whether or not Hillary Clinton, in fact, won the popular vote. I mean, that is an implication that there's very likely the potential that 3 million illegal votes were cast. If the head of the commission is making that kind of a statement, does that concern you at all about the thrust of this commission?
Well, what really concerns me is the good work that the commission could be doing, and I have high hopes that they will look forward to some of these suggestions that states are making. I would hope that this commission takes what states are doing and determines what is working best, so they can share it with other states.
All right, Michelle Reagan, Matthew Dunlap, thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us.